In the end of June, Adobe has released an Illustrator Beta with an AI assistant that can help you with certain tasks. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the tasks it can help you with and also how it performs in these. I've collected some tasks that I've seen in other videos, so maybe you will recognize some of this, but there will also be new ones in here. So in order to open the assistant, you just have to click on this colorful button here, and then the panel opens. It's not in the window menu, so you won't find it in here, but you can take it and dock it on the side, and then it looks like this. So let's take it out of there, and you see it says hello. It has some of those pre-made tasks that you can ask it, so you can just click on here, and then it puts the prompt in here, and then you can send it there, and it will tell you what it can help you with. There are also some example tasks that it can do, and we're going to try out some of these. So I'm going to delete that prompt because you can just do it on your own. So first of all, I want it to create something new for me, and I have a list of prompts here, so let's just copy the prompt from here and then fill it in here. So I want it to create a circle, a triangle, and a square, all in the same optical size and in different colors. So now when you have sent the prompt, it's going to start thinking. It will tell you. Also, if you want to stop it, you can just click on this and then it will cancel that. So here you can now click on this and it will tell you some more of its thinking, so you can follow along. You can also copy this and paste it into a text document in order to take a look at it later, because it will vanish once the assistant has finished. So now it's finished and it's telling us what it has done. It has a lot of reasoning that it will also add here, and it tells us the size it has done these in. And you can immediately see it hasn't fulfilled this task because I have asked for the same optical size and not for the same size. And we all know it has been documented in several videos and posts everywhere, so the physical size is not the same as the optical size, because this triangle clearly looks smaller, and even the circle, so those are not the same optical size. And this is not only going into the Adobe documentation, but this is sending your requests over to Google AI and over to OpenAI and where else. So also this warning will only appear once you use it the first time. So when you first open it and send your first prompt, then it will tell you that it sends your artwork and your requests over to third-party models. And it will not train the models on your material, but it will no longer be private. So that is something you need to know when using this thing. So obviously Google hasn't read what people are posting here, because otherwise it would know about the optical size. But let's continue with this. I want these roughened. I haven't selected the shapes. So let's see. Always when you do something, it will analyze the whole document anyway. So if you have a very complicated document and you want to just edit some elements, it might be better to take these elements out of the complex document, put it into a new document, and then run the AI assistant on them to keep it from analyzing your complete document and probably touching it. So now it's done. Let's take a look at what it's telling us, and it's again giving us some reasoning. And when you select this, you see it has really touched the paths. It has changed the paths. and it has edited them, which it also tells us. It also tells us that we can further edit that, and this is now nice. You can hover over here, and then it will highlight the tool. It doesn't highlight it now, so we can also click on that, and then it will highlight the tool. That is nice. What it didn't do is use the Roughen effect, and it also doesn't tell us to use it. Let's take a look at the next task that I want to do. In this file, I have some shapes, and we all know what we're doing, so just drawing along and then later on think, well, I want to sort this, I want to have some layer structure in this. Let's create that. And I'm giving it the prompt. As you can see, this is a different file and we do not have the history of prompts in the assistant, but it is still there in the other file. So let's give it the prompt. I want to have them sorted into layers by their color, and I don't want it to touch the visual appearance of that artwork. So let's have it in here. And this is now taking a lot of time, like all the others. But what you can do is switch to a different file and do something else. We can also go back to that file, and you see that has all the history of prompting that we did in here, and it will also be saved, and then when you reopen the file it is still there. So let's go back to this file and see how far it has gone. So it has finished. As you have already seen, there have been changes. I'm going to just take a look at that in here, and you see this is the PDF that has been saved in the file, and this clearly does not look like the original anymore. So that's all nice, but we're going to tell it that it has been changed. And now I'm expecting it to tell us that it wasn't possible to preserve the original look. Either I have them sorted into layers or I preserve the look. So that was the deal. And it tells us that the layer stacking order is the problem. So it's not possible to do that. So in order to fix that, those are my options. That is correct. Now, this was a very simple drawing where we can easily see that it has been changed. But if you do that to more complex drawings, that is something you have to watch out for when asking the assistant to sort your drawing. Because if it's not possible to keep the visible appearance of the artwork, then probably the assistant will give your task the preference and then change your artwork. Let's take a look at the next one. So we have now successfully, or rather not very successfully, set up a layer hierarchy. So let's do that in this file here. So I'm going to take a look at that here because I need to get rid of this. I want to use these as my company colors, but this is an image. So if you want to do the task we are doing right now, you better not use an image, but use shapes. So we're going to do that like this. So here we have the colored shapes. And then we have one layer that contains all these logos, but they are grouped. And now let's see what will happen here. The task is, it should create artboards and layers for these logos, and then duplicate them and create alternates using the colors from those rectangles. So it has finished the task, and something new happened here. So I have done the same task with the same file a couple of times, and this is the first time that it scaled the logos when putting them on the artboard, which is also kind of dangerous. In here, this was just a stroke, and it put a fill into it. So let's get rid of that. And actually, I put a couple of more into that. So somewhat it didn't really get the task. And also it made a mistake when scaling, because it didn't scale strokes and effects, which is not so nice. So it has changed the artwork here. And also it didn't really interpret this well. So let's get rid of these. And then maybe we need to do that in a second step. So what else has happened? This artboard is still there, and also with that I have seen several different results when the AI does that. In some cases it did delete it, in some other it didn't, and some it renamed it, and sometimes it put these on top of that, which is also something that needs to be sorted afterwards. Let's take a look at the names. So in here we have all these names, and there we can see it actually did create all these alternatives, but it didn't duplicate the artboards, which also isn't very practical. And what we can see, the layer names, so they all came out differently in all my different tries of this. So you do not get the same logic of layer names, which can also be kind of impractical. You want the same logic for those names. And what you can also do is later adjust the sizes of these artboards so that they fit the content. That is also something the AI can do for you. You can do some more tasks that involve a lot of work with the AI assistant. So let's take a look at the next one. So I want to have this as a list, and I want to have some list points in it. Let's get to the task. So here we've got the task. I want to insert the letter I followed by a tab stop at the beginning of each paragraph and format the I in Dingbatz, which will give it, of course, a very different look. And let's select this and run the task. So when watching this happen, it looks like it's taking a long time. And of course, it takes a long time, although you can do something else while it is working. But also, you have to compare that to you doing this yourself, which might take somewhat longer than the AI doing it automatically. Okay, it has done the thing, so it's telling us what it has done. And let's zoom into that and check the colors. So here's the color panel. And let's show the options. And you see, well, we've got a CMYK file, and it could have just added a cyan, but it didn't do that. The red also is not 100, and probably that is because it is working in hex colors and then converting that, as you can see here. So that's this, but we're not done yet. We want this formatted so that it's a nice list. Let's see what it can do about that. I'm going to stop it here, because clearly today is not its day. And again, this is a task that I have given it before, and that is something that it cannot do. But then it told me that it cannot do that, but it also told me precisely what I needed to do, and then that also worked. So what is needed here is that the tab stop needs to be formatted, and you need to have a left indent, and then you need to pull out the first line. And that's all you need to do. It described that, and everything was fine. So let's get to the next thing. In this here, this is a long text. I want to have every second word in a different color. So here we've got that. And this time I'm going to tell it I want to have that in 100% magenta. And let's see if it can do that. Okay, it's done. And you see this has worked. Let's check out the color. And that has worked as well. So no conversions between RGB and CMYK here. It just did the job. And imagine how long this would have taken you. So it did take some time for the AI to think, but then it just did that. Let's have a similar task here. I want these colored. So this is something I have created using the mosaic filter, and I want to color that. What I want is to apply swatches to that from a certain swatches group. So that group is in here. It has 4 colors. And let's see if the AI can work with the 4-color theorem, which basically says that every map can be colored using just 4 colors. Let's check out that. Now the thing is that, of course, there are scripts to apply random colors to a certain artwork, and also you can tell those scripts which colors to use, but then we want to have it in a way that neighboring squares, so I want this with squares, that neighboring squares always have different colors. So let's select this and do that. So finished. And you see it did it. Let's see if the colors match. So when I select this, then you see this is highlighted. So that worked as well. And of course, the task has been applied. So we have applied this using that additional rule that we have set up. Now, in order to show you that it can also get totally random, let's add more colors to this so that we can also get a very random result. Okay, so as you can see, it got a little stuck in the pattern-like approach, but this is just fulfilling the task with all the rules. Let's get to the next task, and that is one I haven't tried out before, so let's check out if it can do a halftone grid. So the task is turn this image into a halftone grid by drawing a grid of circles on it, while the size of each circle is based on the darkness of the image part below it. Let's stop this here. So it created some nice halftone grids, but not really according to the rules. So these would need to be very small, but maybe I need to refine that a little to see if it can really do a halftone grid. But on the other side, I could create a halftone grid easily in Inkscape, so nothing is lost. Okay, let's take a look at the next task. I want to have a calendar. I wanted to create a pocket calendar for next year, like this, with the public holidays highlighted. So let's have the US public holidays highlighted, and let's see if it can do that. I want to have that on the artboard. Okay, like this. So here we've got our pocket calendar, and you see there are some highlighted holidays. I don't know the US holidays enough to check whether that is okay, but maybe you can put that into the comments if those match your expectation. What we need to check out here is the layers, because that's interesting. We have seen that the assistant can do nice and orderly structured layers, but this is not what has happened here. You see, there is this group, and inside of that group we have this flat structure. So getting that in order will require some work, or you want to give it to the AI assistant to sort this out for you. Let's take a look at this task here. So one of the things the AI assistant is advertised to do is do a pre-flight on your artwork. And this is something that contains a couple of problems. So let's just do that and do a pre-press check. Okay, it has done that. So that was a quick one. Now we have the issues. Now, as you can see, this is an RGB file. And we have overprint on white. So it's this one. This is white overprint. That is correct. So let's go to the attributes as it says, but it's not in object attributes, it's in window attributes. Let's go there. This is highlighted. Let's uncheck that. We have text overset, which is nice that it can find that because Illustrator has no other method to find that unless you want to watch out for all these tiny plus signs. So resize the frame or reduce the text via the type panel. Nope, there is no type panel. So what you need to do is double click this, or you can also go into the area type options that you can also get via double clicking this. And then you can auto size the thing like that. Raster effects anti-aliasing disabled. So yeah, if there are raster effects, then of course document raster effect settings and turn on anti-aliasing. But also the resolution is too low, so that would also be something that would need to be fixed. Let's do that. But there also isn't any raster-based effect in it, so that doesn't really matter. So the color profile is missing. That would need to be fixed, obviously. So let's check that out in the links panel if there is any profile assigned. Obviously not, it's just an RGB file, so I would need to check that. But then also talking about overprinting, we have another one, which is in here. But this one is special. So let's go to the appearance panel. It has an additional fill applied. And then we have the overprint in here. It didn't list that in the result. We have this here, and that is on non-black, which is a spot color. And again, as I said, I have done this several times, and overprint on spot white, of course, there are use cases for that. And in my other tests, it mentioned that. So that is something that, yeah, you can do. So then we have the hairline stroke. That's correct. I would need to correct that. Too close to the trim edge. So we have this one here and new, which are too close, but rather this one here should have some bleed. So then we have the spot color, which it has named here. So there it actually lists that I have to confirm that with the print vendor, so that's okay. Then we have excessive image resolution. So let's check that one out. And I have to use the links panel again. So this has 336, which is totally fine. So I don't know what that warning is about. And then we have this one here, which has 150 ppi, which is actually too low, but not too high. So that's not correct. Artboard default name is not an issue in printing, actually. And then we have no document language, but What actually matters is the language you set up for the paragraph. So we have that type character, and in here we have show options. So this is the language that matters, not what's listed in here. So it found several things, but didn't find others. What's weird is that the last point listed under past checks is the color mode in RGB. Let's change that. So what I'm now going to do is use this one here, and I want to have a block shadow on that. As you have seen, I have prompted this in English, and this also only works with the English beta version, but I did a lot of tests in German, so it understands German, and then it will also answer mostly in German. There will be English in it, but it will answer mostly in German, and it will also give artboards and layers German names if you do that. So here we've got the shadow, but that is not a block shadow, that is a drop shadow. And again, I have asked it to add block shadows, and sometimes it actually knows the difference between drop shadow and block shadow. It can tell you how to do those block shadows, so just those tutorials, but it cannot do that. So anything that happens inside the appearance panel, that is not possible, unless it can just slap an effect on that. So now we've come to things where it can advise you. Let's go to this one here. And in here, I've run into an issue. So this artwork here, and I want to paint it with the Live Paint tool, and it doesn't work. So let's get some help. Okay, so it has finished. The problem is clear from inspecting your selected paths. They have not been converted into a Live Paint group. Yeah, but still, even if that is a Live Paint group, then I might run into problems filling this, because there are gaps, and gaps need specific settings. So it also tells me they have no fill, which is correct, because if there had been fills on them, then this would get even more difficult actually. So let's undo that. So, and there we have the actual reason. So the paths don't fully close or intersect, and then it won't detect any faces. And then you have to check out the gap options. That is what I was looking for, check out the gap options. And of course, it would also have been right to just close these, make them longer. And one of these is something you need to do. Also, this is the first time I've seen it mention the gap options. In my other tests, it didn't mention them. So again, sometimes it does it and sometimes it doesn't. You cannot rely on it. Let's take a look at this one here. I want these colored. How do I do that? There are my results, and you can again see that it highlights those tools, and when you click on that it opens the panels, but it tells me to just add the color, but there are also these lines in that, and this is something you need to be very precise. And with this kind of task, I have also seen it to just delete one of the squares and just draw its own squares on it and color them. So it can get pretty wild what it answers. And then it also tells me that there are these lines, and it tells me to go to Live Paint. Yeah, that's great. So give me Live Paint as a solution, and that would be what to do. But also this on top is unnecessary. So yeah, this would have been it. So one final thing, and I want an explanation. So we have two things that are called compound. We have compound paths and compound shapes. What's the difference between those? Here we have the things, the two to compare. Compound paths are created via Command 8, and we get a single path object. That is correct. So the overlapping areas become transparent based on the fill rules. So they are destructive in terms of editing. Well, I wouldn't actually call them destructive because you can still release that and then you got the original paths. And all of that is correct. So then we have a compound shape created via the Pathfinder panel. Yeah, and clicking a shape mode button. It's non-destructive, that is correct. But that is not correct. They also have one appearance attribute. Only the effects can be different. And you can change the shape mode. That is correct. And you can permanently flatten them, which is also correct. So some of that is correct and some is not correct. And again, I have asked it that another time. And when I did that, it also mixed Pathfinder effects into that. And then it's no longer correct. So the answers are also based on how it's feeling today. I'm going to try one more thing with our logo test. So let's go here and let's revert this. And I'm going to try that once more to see if we can get that. And let's see if it does it now and put them all into a nice grid with all our colors in them, but also I need to again delete this image and make these visible. This time it arranged them into a grid, and let's check out the names again. So there is this. Again, I have seen this, which also made copies for the layers. In this one here, it has all those on the same layer. And again, we have different names for those layers than in the first try. Also, I don't know why it scaled these two differently. And I don't know why it scaled them at all. Let's take a look at the colors. So this is the violet. That's the original. So it didn't change the colors. That's a good thing. This was the AI assistant in the Illustrator Beta, and you have seen how it can be used, what it can do, what it can't do, and what you have to watch out for.